Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for being here in yet another Cafe Scientifique. Today's topic is going to be creativity and leadership, and we are so happy to have among our panelists these prestigious names. And I'm going to start by Sagi Hartov. He is the owner of Berlin Business School, but not only, he's also a very famous cellist, international cellist, musician. Hello, Sagi.
Hello, just a correction. I'm a CEO and chairman of BSBI. BSBI is part of the GAS.
Part of the biggest group, GAS Global. Also with us is Mr. Kyriakos Kouveliotis, the academic officer of Berlin Business School and Provost. Hello, Kyriakos.
Hello from me. I would like to welcome you to another BSBI event. Now, it has been a global institution, let's say, and every month we're running a different one. This one in particular is one of my favorites because creativity is always associated with leadership. And it's another perspective, what we can teach to our students and also to embrace the international community. So, Anastasia, you mentioned that Sagi has also another creative dimension that we know, one of the musicians. So I'm looking forward also to hear some of his comments. So welcome all, and you have the floor.
Sagi is not the only musician in our company today. I would like to welcome also Mr. Sean Bickerton, who is the director of the Canadian Music Center, but also president of the BC Alliance. Hello, Sean. Welcome.
Good. Hello. Thank you very much. It's lovely to be with you today.
Our pleasure to have you. I'm going to continue with Miss Deb Gilbertson. Hello, Deb. Deb is the owner of Growing Leaders to Innovate Consultant. Hello, hello, Deb. Welcome.
Kia ora, very warm welcome from New Zealand.
Our pleasure to have you. I'm going to continue with Mathias Rastorfer, who is the CEO and co-owner of Gmurzynska Galeries. Hello, Mathias.
Hello to everybody from Zurich.
Hello. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Pleasure.
Also with us today, it's going to be Miss Lotta Pick, that is a gallerist at Open White Gallery and Business Development Fine Arts Berlin. Hello. Hello, Lotta.
Hello, nice to meet you. I'm sitting in Berlin as well.
Welcome to our company.
Thank you.
Also with us, it's Mr. Gabriel Mattar, the Chief Creative Officer at INNOCEAN Worldwide Europe. Hello, Gabriel.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be here too. Nice to meet you all.
And last but not least, Mr. Dirk Boll, the President of Christie's Europe and UK, Middle East and Africa. Hello, Dirk.
Hey, good afternoon. Hi.
Our great pleasure to have you today. And we look forward on your views on how you think, what is the connection between creativity and leadership. We all know these creative minds that have lived over the centuries from so many different sectors like philosophy, like music, dance, theater, architecture, but they were not only creative minds. They were also very efficient in leadership. Let me just mention a few names. For example, Newton, also Leonardo da Vinci, also Aristotle, and so many more. What I have found that they have in common is not only being intelligent, but also following a certain pattern that is not the same for the masses. And how do we think of that pattern? As Einstein had said, in order to solve some problems with existing patterns, it's not so easy to do. So what you need to do is to change those patterns and figure out new solutions. So pattern is one. The other thing, according to what I believe, is people having these masterminds, let's say, they were not just intelligent and people who just wanted to go out of the comfort zone and try new things, because when you go, also when you are traveling, like a tourist, you never return the same, right? You get new stimulations and then you figure out new ways of thinking as well. So pattern is one thing, people is another. People, what I mean by people is the cluster. Who are the 50 people, let's say, that belong to your network? This is very important. This is very important because you can have some ideas, some purpose, and this is the third P I would like to mention. So it is purpose, people that will embrace that purpose. They need to be the right people to embrace that purpose, or then you need to just change the cluster. And then, of course, all this gets somehow connected into creating something new. But let's start with your views. Mr. Dirk Boll, what would be your thoughts?
What would be my what? Sorry.
What would be your thoughts in connection to creativity and leadership?
Oh my goodness. So that's a complicated one. It's also difficult to be the one who starts, because as you know, I'm a manager, and therefore I think a lot about leadership, but I work with incredibly creative people in my company, and even more so outside Christie's. So there is a certain borderline you have to analyze and you have to understand, because on the one hand, leadership needs creativity, be it your own creativity to improve and further develop things, structures, the way you do things, the way you look at the world. On the other hand, creativity is best employed by giving it a certain structure to unfold in. And I think that is the difficulty here, because too much administration and control kind of kills creativity. On the other hand, creativity is most successful in kind of its purpose of changing the world when it's channeled in a sensible way. So I don't think every leader has to be creative. I don't think that every creative has to show leadership qualities. I think it's the way you collaborate on these two fronts. And there are very few very gifted people who can deliver both of that. And as you highlighted with historic people, there are some around who have been incredibly intelligent and open-minded and had good ideas how to structure the future, but it normally doesn't come in one person. It's usually better as qualities you would look out for when you put together a team. So in a sense, it is a question of how can you develop the collaboration between the two parts, so both sides can benefit. In my view, at least when it comes to my own person, I'm not particularly creative, but I think I would say I do understand enough about creative processes to enable them, and that is my view of leadership.
Thank you very much, Dirk. Very well said. Of course, observing the historical data, of course, no matter how clever we think they were, because they were, Newton and Einstein and all of these people, because they have created a background for us to elaborate now, but also they didn't create something from scratch. We know from the data that they had around them a cluster of people. For example, Newton had at least another 25 people in his group, and he further got ideas from observing and studying those before him. So it is very important to be in connection with people who will take your ideas and you can champion these ideas together. So there may be people who believe in the same purpose, right? Deb, what would be your thoughts? Deb, you can please unmute.
Right, my apologies. Let me just give a little bit of background as to why I've been invited here this evening. I run this global contest and we've had 120 countries take part. This year, right at this moment, I've got 1,360 people from around the world, 55 countries, and we're putting them into global teams of 8 people. And they have to develop an innovative, creative idea and business proposal for a profitable venture that will address a United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. And we're training the leaders. So this year I've got about 250 leaders that I'm training. And we're training them in creativity and we're training them in leading creativity. So with that little bit of background, let me tell you what I've learned from this. We're also training 60 coaches in coaching conversations to help support the leaders to think for themselves and to find their own insights. So what have we learned? Firstly, that creativity is utterly woeful. It is abominable out there. I cannot begin to tell you how these wonderful emerging leaders, they're MBA students, master students, undergraduate students, people working in the United Nations, you know, all sorts of people, that the quality of creativity is unbelievably bad. That even when we train them and we can stretch them a bit, it's still bad. And some cultures are worse than others. That so many of our students have been trained to get right answers, that they are scared to think a thought and say something that is not correct. And yet to be creative, you have to be brave and wrong and get a whole lot of things completely stupid ideas and great ideas and possible ideas and things that move from one idea to the next. They're too scared. And so how do we get the fear out of it? Now we're all programmed as human beings to look for scarf threats, anything that's going to affect our status, our certainty about what's happening, our autonomy, our relatedness, and our sense of fairness. And so we're programmed from caveman days to see all the threats out there. But if anybody feels a threat, they won't be creative. So now we're training our leaders to say, how do you build the rapport? How do you build the safety? How do you make it okay for people to get things wrong and to be okay? And you've got that norming, forming, storming, performing, adjourning, I don't know, I've got the order wronging, but you know, you get the idea, about how these groups come together. And it's not until they get to the performing, past all these other stages, that they actually start to get creative. And then we noticed something. We noticed that those teams that we got together and they got online, and a typical team might be New Zealand, Germany, Rwanda, Lithuania, Colombia, Samoa, and China or something, you know, a mix of 8 people. And those teams that got stuck in and generated creative ideas and got going had to go back and form the team and the unity in the team and the courage to be able to get things wrong before they could progress. So we're now coaching them with coaching conversations to say, how do you make it a really safe environment for people to get things wrong and to have the friendship and the rapport and the relatedness before you can actually get into performing. So so that's probably, you know, the summary of what we do. There's a lot more I've got here, but yeah, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you very much, Deb. I will hold one specific word that you mentioned, that those leaders of those teams have in common in order to be a little creative, that is requested in order to be the winning team. It is to be able to go out of your comfort zone. As we said, if we follow a certain pattern, then all we are doing is wake up in the morning, drink coffee, go to work, come back, sleep, and then, you know, die. So you need to be a little willing to embrace challenges and create something out of them. Now I would like to listen to the thoughts of Gabriel Mattar. Gabriel?
Hi, sure.
No.
I mean, it's quite funny because I work in an advertising agency, and I carry in my title Chief Creative Officer, right? So like I do, in theory, I stand for leadership and creativity, and that's my job towards my clients and the team that works with us. One thing I like to think business, because this is a business school, to me, creativity is the ability, related to business, is the ability to solve problems in an unusual way, right? Everybody knows how to do things or feels and can follow the same patterns, especially in business. And I agree with you, Deb, we've been training people for long to forget about creativity. And I think all of us at some point, when you're first graders in the school, all of us are creative people. All of us look at the world in an unusual way. And as we get more and more educated, funny enough, the less creative we become, because our corporations force us or don't believe necessarily that creativity is the forefront in their business. And I tell you, and I tell that to every client I work with or come across, we all creatives, and your business needs creativity in order to strive, because as I said, creativity is the ability to solve problems in an unusual way. And if we try always the same path, we don't survive. So I think as leaders, we need to have that inside us, how I'm solving things in an unusual way, how I'm actually getting my team inspired to fail and to embrace failure. Because if you try things unusually, they not necessarily have the outcome you expect. So that will be my take.
Thank you very much, Gabriel. In relation to what you said, I can mention one other example coming from the golf. People who play golf, we all know that it's more famous, this specific sport, in elderly ages. I was amazed to see that the biggest percentage of mistakes of missing the ball, missing the hole, comes from people who are very, very experienced and have been playing golf for so many years, and not from those who are amateurs, let's say, and they don't have so much experience. And then how can this be? And the reason is that when you are so experienced, you know all the things that may go wrong. So then you start thinking and double checking, and then you are not so bold anymore. This is what happens also in leadership. You need to be brave and bold, of course, to assess situations and have a risk management, but you need to dare. This is my point. Thank you very much, Gabriel. I will continue with Lotta, Miss Lotta Pick. Hello. Let's hear a lady now.
Hello. Yeah, thanks again for having me. And yeah, it was an interesting selection of speakers as well to choose from the creative industries, because as was mentioned earlier, creativity in leadership is certainly something we also see in other industries. So briefly about my background, since 2019, I've been running an own gallery program that actually has a bit of an unusual model because I'm not set in one location. So the exhibitions take place in different surroundings and spaces. And before that, I was in management consulting for the Swedish Trade Council. And actually, I thought back to that time in the management consulting, excuse the background noise, for good examples of creative leadership, right? So it's about empowering people to find their own way. And one term that always came back was motivation, because it always amazes me what individuals are capable of doing if they're really motivated. I mean, a good example for business students would probably be, you know, that job you really want. The application is written in no time, but something you don't really feel like doing, it might feel like a struggle. One team leader was really skilled in connecting, maybe a project goal to individual goals. And I found that ultimately motivating, and if you are able to align the individual goals of the people of your team to empower them and to link them to like the greater the goals of your company, then I felt like that led to great creativity, because it made people think outside of the box and think in their own ways, see it as a path they could create themselves rather than following the structures that were already there.
Thank you very much, Lotta. Of course, as we mentioned, we all need to have a purpose, and that purpose, in order to engage the right people to help us achieve that purpose, that needs to be a joint purpose, or discover by brainstorming with the right people. So we need to be in the right cluster, but in order to be in the right cluster, first of all, we need to have that right purpose. That I don't mean by purpose to purchase more villas and grow our personal wealth. I mean purpose that will have a general impact in the greater society. And then if we have this, we can motivate people, the right people, to come and join hands, and then of course achieve that purpose or create new purposes. And of course this creates a new pattern. Thank you very much. I would like to continue with Mr. Mathias Rastorfer. Mathias?
Thank you. Well, I was listening carefully to Ms. Gilbertson and Mr. Mattar, and I think they both raised a very important point, which is the fear of failure, and also the training that you get at universities and in bigger corporations, which basically try to eliminate mistakes, and where you have a due diligence system that is the opposite of helping creativity. Having been in the art world since 1979, I've learned in all those years that staying current is essentially the survival skill that you have to implement creativity. Without creativity, you do not adapt to changing environments, and you're not staying current. So creativity is an essential element in business success from my experience. And there's also a tendency that I find dangerous, which is that one kind of disregards history. You mentioned famous geniuses from Aristotle to Einstein, but I'm talking about the collective history of things you have to learn, why it's important to go to a school like yours, why students actually study, is that you learn from the past and you apply it creatively to the future. That's, for me, a very important part of creativity, is to find that fine line between what is something that is proven and tested versus the future, which is untested. And creativity comes very close to intuitive learning, intuitive reacting, which is another skill that I think is extremely important in today's world, where you have to respond quickly. It is not something that I'm telling that's new, but time is of the essence. And in today's world, things are faster than ever. And in order to react to this, both competitively with AI, competitively with all these new elements that are coming up in technology, as a human person, you have to respond to this with your creativity and with your intuitiveness to react to problems. And I think there's no discrepancy between the creative mind, which is, by the way, not the hippie who actually smokes pot and thinks outside the box. It is actually today a skill that is very much part of management. We represented two artists and business leaders that are dead by now, Zaha Hadid and Karl Lagerfeld. And from both of them, I learned a lot about that thin line between creativity, business sense. And one thing that I find gets very often lost in this equation is the sense of time. if you are a creative person, if you run a big company, if you actually have a goal, if you know what you want to do and achieve in life, and you're getting bogged down by people who steal your time, then if you're people like Zaha or Karl Lagerfeld, you become very nasty, because time is the most precious element. So the creative part with business leaders who are both artistic and business orientated also involves learning from the past and using your time wisely.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting and absolutely true. Nowadays, we have so many different information coming from so many different sources. And what is very important is to just switch off and just make a little clearing what is important and what is not, and just not lose time with so many useless information that is that distract you. Actually, they distract you, and use them as a weapon, as a tool, and not in order to distract you from doing that purpose that we said to have in mind. Thank you very much. I would like to continue with Mr. Sean Bickerton. Hello, Sean.
Yes, hello. I find the comments of the people who spoke previously really fascinating, and they touch on these very fundamental ideas that are so crucial to the concept. I think we have to understand the context for the context in which creativity takes place. Change being the only constant, and others have alluded to this, but if change is the only constant in our world, then circumstances are always new. And to continue doing the same thing in the face of changed circumstance would actually be madness. And so creativity is the only possible rational response to a world in which everything continues to change, and change so rapidly. And so it must be a component of leadership, because organizations, and I work in the arts, I've spent my entire life working in the arts, representing great performing artists, producing tours for European orchestras, and now I champion composers. So I've worked with creative people all of my life. But I think we have to understand that creativity happens as a response then to imperfection. It's to change and imperfection, the oyster responding to the irritating grain of sand and producing an oyster as a solution to solve its problem. Creativity by nature is the fashioning of a solution to imperfection, to a change in circumstance that is usually unwelcome. And in order to respond to the circumstances around us that have changed, we have to understand where we are. And I think this ability to recognize the situation around us has changed. They say that when people get lost, most people get lost not because they keep doing the same thing they've been doing all along. The people that are successfully are rescued and that are able to orient themselves, they stop what they've been doing when they find they've been lost. They stop and they orient themselves, and they recognize their situation. They recognize that they're lost. And only then can they be found, and can they set themselves up for success in this new environment. And I think for most of us, we go on about our workaday lives without responding to the change around us, because what we want is comfort. And creativity by nature is discomfort. It's a response to discomfort and a recognition that it exists. So situational awareness is key. An imperfection or a response to change is a key context for this. But there is no more powerful way to solve problems. There's a quote by George Lois, who was the editor of Esquire magazine. I love this. He says, "Creativity can solve almost any problem. The creative act, the defeat of habit by originality, overcomes everything." And really, in some ways, it can be as simple as that. It's just a defeat of habit by originality. And I think the other thing that I think is important to recognize is that the creative mind, the part of our mind that is creative, the one gentleman, Mr. Boll mentioned that when we're little, we're all creative. And we're inherently creative. We're drawing and painting and singing and dancing, and it's all unformed and wonderfully wild. But there's this inherent aspect to humans. It's why we've been so successful. But it's in this situation, we're talking about responding to really challenging problems. There has to be a really well-developed creative muscle. There's a technique that evolves and is refined over time. There's a practice that one learns in order to be creative, and then can bring all of that to bear in response to these challenges, these imperfections we face later in life as we're trying to fashion these powerful solutions. And I think that too cannot be neglected. You know, that it's the old joke about the guy gets to the cab and says, how do we get to Carnegie Hall? And the man says, practice, 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 the cab driver. It takes years and years of hard work to develop a creative capacity and a technique and a discipline that you can then bring to fashion these solutions. Like the gentleman mentioned, you know, these great creative geniuses like Lagerfeld, et cetera, and the artists that I've worked with. That takes a lifetime of hard work and discipline. And I think that can't be ignored.
Thank you so much, Sean. I will stick to the creative capacity that you mentioned, saying that when actually do we feel more creative, right? Okay, we all know that we have the left part of the brain, and that is the more creative one, and the right part. And so what's going on in our brain when we are creative? Of course, when we are in a circle of other creative people, we are more excited and more happy. So as we know, when we feel like this, it's more easy to produce creative ideas. When, on the contrary, we feel under stress and in an environment with negative emotions like jealousy and stress, ongoing stress, and all of that, of course, creativity blocks. So my advice would be to seek an environment that embrace your creativity and people who make you happy, because happiness is not something that we chase. It's not somewhere hidden in a cave and we need to go and find it. Happiness is within us. We create it. We create it by knowing ourselves. Okay, we are not born with a business plan. We try things and we see where we feel more comfortable. We try meeting this person and this environment and this and that, and we see what makes us better, what fulfills us, let's say, and then we try to keep our inner circle, this kind of people who will help us to produce positive outcomes and thoughts. And positive outcomes, as we know, come only when we feel happy. I'm not a neuroscientist, but we all know certain things in business world and from own experience, each one of us, that when we feel happy, we are more more generous, we are more easygoing, more calm, and it is true. People who are creative, like all these that we have mentioned, like famous scientists that have a purpose, famous philosophers, artists, and so on. They are people that they don't get consumed by small litigations and small things in daily life. They have a greater idea to share. So this is my advice to all our students that listen to us right now. If you have found the proper environment to embrace your ideas and make you better, stick to that. If not, try and change that pattern. Now I would like to welcome any questions from our students. Ankita? Before we close, I would like to ask last phrase, if you have each one of you. I will start with Kyriakos. Kyriakos? Sagi?
Okay. So first of all, good afternoon from Berlin. And thank everyone for joining us. I myself, some people will say over creative, because sometimes as a manager, as a musician, people expect you to be more, as a musician for sure, less focus on business plan, less focus on operation, and more coming with creatives. And I'm sure people here on this panel, the ones coming from music backgrounds and from creative subjects, know that actually people who are coming from creative backgrounds are even more focusing how to make things more perfect in subjects that they don't have the backgrounds in. I studied in the US and in the UK, and I had an opportunity in my personal life to work for mayors of London and many organizations and start my own institution like a London Contemporary Arts and the Berlin School of Business and Innovation. And as much as you get the support and the feedback from the host company that support you, you are standalone. You basically need to show that the business plan, that the idea, the subject, everything you come on table is going to make a success. And creative has a great advantage, but not always is the only tool you need as a leader. And I think that these days, actually, we are all, to survive, need to be creative. The scenario that we had in March 2020 create for all of us, the ones who were talented more, how to survive and even benefit and find new opportunities to be more successful than others. That as much as there were wonderful operators or wonderful managers, they shut down. What do I mean shut down? I saw colleagues who were wonderful managers and very good operators, couldn't know how to deal with the new environment. And they basically froze. They didn't know what to do with themselves. And it was for those who were more creative, more adapted, able to actually come with new ideas, how to solve these solutions, and how to make sure that business is not just continuing, but have new avenues, new directions to go around the elements of the difficulties or the challenges. I think also that not every leader you want him to be creative, but definitely you want them to be entrepreneurial, to be able to have those challenges. So as our colleague from Chistie says, maybe he's not an artist like his many of his clients who coming and he can give them the stage to make money and to actually promote themselves and also for his own business to succeed. But to be fair, there are certain people you want them to be creative and you want some people to be creative business thinking. And I think that this is something that we learn. When I created LCC, I called it making art work. Why I called it like that with the slogan? Because I felt there are so many unemployed artists in the world. So you need to give them and to equip them with a business aspect so they can survive. And when I created the Berlin School of Business Innovation, I call it the art of business. And people say, why art? It's a business school. And I said, yes, the art to make business, because you have so many business people or finance people, although you don't want a creative accounting, but you definitely would like to have someone who has a very good capability of taking a small opportunity and make out of it something very successful. And I think this is the major point. We want people who are capable in their genes to survive and to make the ability of education, life experience, and also a vision, a 360 degrees vision, how to survive in this world. This is something that you cannot build in a young generation immediately. And I do think that this kind of creative leaders should come with some experience. It's nothing to be wrong to try and to fail, although it depends how the failure will be. But at the end of the day, you want the people who are leaders of the future to make sure that when they are doing something, they have their whole heart in it. Because if you have all your heart in what you're doing and you believe in it, and you're looking at the mirror in the morning and you said, I'm doing it for those reasons, then you know you will do something good at the end of the day. I worked in a charity and I had a passion for making a success. I worked in an embassy as a cultural attaché. I came to a point where my own ambassador, the ambassador of the embassy said, Sagi, this is not a business. You are the cultural attaché. You're not a businessman. You're not supposed to make us money. We cannot make profit here. But the idea was how I combine without a budget or big budget, the capability of bringing so many together to make out of the same event a bigger successful event. And the creative mind is how to utilize so many talented. So every entrepreneur will have so many people with so much talents next to them. And that was another point that was mentioned here by one of the guests, that they need talented people around them. Because if they don't, you can be a soloist, but without the orchestra, not always everyone will want to hear for the suite. So that's my point.
Very well put. And I will stick to one point mentioned, having to do with the creative leadership. No matter how creative you are, or you think you are, or others think that you are, the thing is that we cannot create from scratch. Nature creates. We assemble. We hear one idea here, one there, one before, one after, and we connect the dots. We create the puzzle, okay? We assemble. This is the key point. Kyriakos, what would you like to add?
Thank you, Anastasia.
Kyriakos is also coming not only a leader, because a creative leader will also choose creative leaders. Kyriakos, apart from leader in Berlin Business School, is also has a connection with art, also paints.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. That let's say that I'm trying to relax from work sometimes via painting. And I'm also playing guitar for at least 30 years, but I'm not as good as Sagi. I don't consider myself even close. Since we're also an academic institution, as we all know, I would like to remind you the phrase of John Fitzgerald Kennedy regarding leadership and learning. So he said that these two are indispensable to one another. And this is one of the messages that we want to transmit to our students from day one when they join BSBI. And this wonderful opportunity that you are giving us with organizing all these Cafe Scientifiques, they are towards reaching this perspective and goal. We all know the differences between the leader and the manager. The one does the right things, one does things right, and all these distinctions. Sagi, for example, is a person that one of the few in my life that I met that actually combines both of them in a sense. And he's also a very good friend, and I'm enjoying all these discussions that we're doing together. So for me in the school, I found the best perspective to combine some of my creative visions and some of the things that I always enjoyed in life, and try to bring them all together to our educational and didactic activities, even by designing a new learning model, a hybrid pattern for education, this Cafe Scientifique series, the scientific journal that we have created and will be launched next month, and a lot of wonderful, innovative and creative ideas that we managed to do. So the education sector is one of the best domains, probably the best one, that we can utilize in order to enhance our creativity and innovative skills. So thanks again, all our speakers and the participants, you, Sagi, and Anastasia, for your contribution. And I think maybe we'll have some questions or comments from our viewers.
We do have some questions at this point. One of our students is asking, in this changing world, do companies should hire more by skills rather than by CV in order to find employees that produce significant alternatives?
Question.
Who would like to
should I start?
Yes.
I do a lot of interviews, not personally, but when I have them for certain roles, I do them, and sometimes obviously I don't do the junior or middle jobs. I look at the higher one, deans and others, and I can tell you that some people come with amazing CV on a paper, but when you ask them simple question, they cannot answer.
Yeah, they cannot elaborate.
And what you find in these days that CVs are great. They indicate capability of discipline, I would say, of a person to go through certain education, certain pattern, or certain time frame in the same employability. But I always, maybe it's me and I'm maybe different than all of the others here, always have scenarios. And whenever I sit in front of a person, I give them like 2-3 scenarios. And I said, how will you solve them? And a lot of people come with a very funny ways of solving certain scenarios or come up with certain ideas. And sometimes you get the perfect answer and you know that's the person I can work with. I don't know if I really want all the time the perfect CV, but I know that in these days and time, you want more people that think alike. And for me, this is the best CV I can get. Someone I can trust and know that if I not needed there, it will be done. And this is the great things for every leader. We used to do a trick in the past in London when I worked. I used to leave the college for about a week and say, but I was working in another office down the road. And I said, if the people don't burn the college down, that means that I hire the right people. And actually, it was one of the good samples that a lot of those people were very good because they don't need you. As long as you have a good team and a very creative and know how to solve and how to focus on customer service, but also capable to solve issues, that's better than any CV you will find. And it doesn't matter if he comes from Poland or Germany or any other country that perhaps perceive that the degree or anything like that is not the Yale University or the other one. It can be anything as long as the person is capable and you feel trustworthy and show passion. That's the best way for instead of a CV. That's personal.
Wow, that was very nice answer.
Thank
And I'm very, very much inspired by all our speakers today. I think that's the right cluster to be. Huh? Thank you all so much. Just to give one small final input, we are, one of the creative ideas we are having is that we are actually preparing a book on creativity and leadership, where actually many personal drawings of ours, as well as of important artists that have lived in the past in connection to leadership and creativity, how you face different challenges, will be published in the next months. And I would be very happy if any one of our panelists would like to contribute. I will send you personally new inputs. And for now, I would like to just thank you and just to outline that it was very nice having you, all of you today. Thank you very much, Mr. Dirk Boll, President of Christie's. We really enjoyed it. Mr. Mathias Rastorfer, thank you so much for sharing your insights. It was very much appreciated. Ms. Deb Gilbertson, thank you very much, Deb. We know it's a hard time now there in New Zealand. It's very late at night. Also, it's very early in the morning for Mr. Sean Bickerton. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation, Sean. Thank you very much, Gabriel Mattar, for your views, and also thank you very much, Miss Lotta Pick, and I wish you every success in the inauguration of, I think I saw you have an exhibition now, right?
Yeah, it's opening today in half an hour.
You can invite us.
Yeah, I will do.
Thank
Can
you.
I ask one
Yes,
question
yes.
for our gentleman from Christie's? I remember in the time that both Sotheby's and Christie's used to create educational program for people about luxury and historical
Art.
things. So there were like a short courses and a luxury basically, but also a heritage informations. Are they still going? And
Absolutely. We do have a daughter company that's called Christie's Education, and the range of offers is much wider than what you described. So it's no longer focusing on luxury, not even on art, but it's really a wide range. And we've just had in the previous 2 weeks a 4 days course on NFT as art medium. So just to give you an example.
yeah,
They have an own website. Check it out, Christie's Education.
We are in the same cluster, and we are bringing new ideas now to join forces. Thank you very, very much for being with us. It was an absolute pleasure. I hope that you all enjoyed it as much as we did, and also all our students and viewers. It's going to also be uploaded on YouTube, and you can share with your own personal circle. And at this point, I would just, before saying goodbye, I would just like to mention that you can stay tuned for our next Cafe Scientifique in Artificial Intelligence in Business, scheduled to be in June. Bye-bye.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.